it doesn't stop. It just doesn't stop. It's been less than 2 weeks since the new year has begun, and already Fallout 76 has found more ways to attract ridicule. Even if we ignore the fact that Fallout 76 launched completely broken after a hyperbolic marketing campaign, that Bethesda advertised their collector's edition by bait and switching its canvas bag for a crappy nylon bag, that their response to getting caught was by offering a meager 500 atoms as recompense, which wasn't even enough to buy a virtual canvas bag from the Atomic Shop, that they accidentally leaked private information of people who submitted tickets to receive replacement canvas bags, which by the way will take between 4 to 6 months to produce and ship, that they updated Fallout 76 at one point to be grindier without informing players, that the ultra-wide fix support they promised for one of their patches turned out to be a simple INI edit that didn't resolve the stretched and distorted user interface, that they sold overpriced holiday items while misleadingly advertising discounts, that they misled customers with the $80 Nuka Dark Rum that was supposed to be a uniquely designed glass bottle that turned out to be a regular bottle of low-quality rum inside a cheap, ugly plastic shell, and that they questionably banned some Fallout 76 players for suspected cheating because certain programs were detected running in the background, while some people who actually did cheat were unbanned after they were asked to submit an essay on why the use of third-party cheat software is detrimental to the game. Even if we ignore all that, we are already seeing early signs that Fallout 76 won't fare much better in 2019. Let's start with how on the first day of 2019, the game's endgame, nuclear bombs, became glitched for all players. As an article by website Kotaku reported, quote, "Players discovered this yesterday on January 1st, the day of the game's weekly reset. Instead of silos reopening after use, players found that the silos were locked with a new countdown timer of 9,999 hours. The scorched officer enemies who normally drop parts of the nuke codes necessary to launch the game's nuclear weapons weren't spawning either. Even the intel monitor in the Enclave bunker was glitched, showing the words complete and incomplete superimposed over one another and hashtags in the place where letters should be. The cause of this glitch seemingly had something to do with a programming error within Fallout 76 that didn't take into account the change in calendar year, causing the nuke timers to go crazy. Bethesda has yet to provide an explanation as to why the glitch happened, seemingly too embarrassed to share proper details, but suffice to say that it was a dumb mistake that left players unable to access Fallout 76's endgame for an entire day. While this occurrence is by no means the end of the world on its own, Bethesda needed to show that 2019 would mark a fresh start, but instead, they kicked things off by falling flat on their face at the starting line, signaling ill omen for the future. I wish I could tell you that this was a fluke and that it's been smooth sailing from there, but a few days later, word of yet another major Fallout 76 fuck-up began to make the rounds. The following information was reported by news outlet Eurogamer, which recently discovered that Fallout 76 players have found a major exploit that has allowed them to access the game's developer room. What is the developer room, you ask? Well, you may be familiar with it if you've played other Bethesda games like Skyrim or Fallout 4 on PC. It's typically accessed via console commands, and as the name implies, the purpose of the developer room is to be strictly accessible to developers only. It's an isolated space containing every item in a respective Bethesda game, allowing developers to test them out for development purposes. Now, in Bethesda's single-player titles, it hardly matters whether players can access it or not, as cheating in these games would not affect the experience of others. But in a multiplayer game like Fallout 76, which relies on maintaining balance to keep the game fair for all players, access to such a room could completely ruin the game. That's why Bethesda disabled the ability for players to access console commands even on PC, and they no doubt had every intention of ensuring that nobody could access Fallout 76's developer room, which contains every single item in the game, all of which players would normally have to earn through gameplay grind. However, since Bethesda didn't remove the room outright from the final game for whatever reason, players eventually found a way to gain access to it. The process of pulling this off is something that's not been widely detailed, but from what few rumblings I've heard, it has something to do with a teleport hack and finding the ID or code that identifies the room's location. I'm not 100% sure though, and I'd rather not say any more than that, as I don't want to get into trouble or encourage anyone to cheat in a multiplayer game, but suffice to say that for someone with technical expertise and who has experience with previous Bethesda games, it wasn't very difficult to find and gain access to Fallout 76's developer room. Making matters worse is that the room also contains unreleased items, including power armor paints called Winterized, Military, and Atom Cats, all of which no doubt were meant to be sold in the Atomic Shop in a future update. So cheaters and hackers who managed to get into Fallout 76's developer room have essentially run away with all of the game's rarest, most powerful, and most coveted items, and then some. Some players have even begun selling these items online for real money through websites like eBay or through forums like the Market 76 subreddit, though moderators there have apparently been cracking down on people who are selling illicit items like ones that haven't officially been made available yet. Interestingly, something else you can find inside the developer room is an NPC going by the name of Whoopi, which is of particular interest considering how the lack of NPCs in Fallout 76 is one of the biggest points of contention, with most believing that their absence has been hugely detrimental to the game's narrative and world. While the existence of Whoopi has led some to speculate that Bethesda may be gearing up to add NPCs into the game, the more likely theory is that Whoopi is simply there to take a beating when developers are testing weapons and such. The name Whoopi in particular is a dead giveaway, with one comment from Eurogamer's article explaining it as follows. A Whoopi is a military blanket that is universally loved by service members. The official name for it is a poncho liner, but if you search for them by Whoopi, you can find them on Amazon or many other places. I'm not sure if this is what Bethesda had in mind, but it's the first thing I thought of when I saw Whoopi. A beloved friend that takes abuse for you so you can succeed, or in this case, a beloved NPC that takes abuse so you can test the endless bugs of a Fallout game. That makes perfect sense to me, so I wouldn't read too heavily into the existence of a human NPC inside the developer room, as his only function seems to be to act as a test dummy. Now, if anyone out there is thinking about accessing Fallout 76's developer room after hearing this news, I would tread very carefully or think twice, as according to sources who spoke to Eurogamer, Bethesda is now issuing automatic account suspensions to anyone who enters the room. Eurogamer even managed to get a hold of an email message one user received after entering the room resulted in their account being banned, which reads as follows. Greetings, we would like to reach out to you concerning this Fallout 76 account. Our records indicate that a character or characters on this account appear to be in a corrupted and or unusual state at this time. This form of character corruption is typically seen after a character has visited an area within the game which isn't typically accessible via normal gameplay. In an effort to ensure the integrity of these characters and this account as a whole, we have temporarily suspended this Fallout 76 account. Oftentimes, this form of corruption is directly introduced while performing the unique steps necessary to gain access to one of the locations described above. To properly address and correct this issue, your assistance is vital. If any of the characters on this account have possibly visited one of these locations, please describe the way it was accessed in a reply to this email. That detail should provide the information necessary for us to correct any corruption issues on this side and safely release this account and return these characters back into the world. Should we not hear back from you, this Fallout 76 account will simply remain suspended and unavailable until we hear back from you, at which time we will conduct an investigation to reach a final decision about the status of this account. Regards, Bethesda Customer Support. You've got to laugh at how Bethesda's asking players to explain how they gained access to the developer room rather than looking into how it is that the studio managed to let people in. The one who should be writing an essay is Bethesda explaining why they couldn't lock down the developer room more securely or why they haven't removed the room from the final game outright so that this never becomes an issue. Their current attempt at mitigating the ongoing problem has been to automatically flag any accounts that are detected entering the room, but that hasn't really stopped the abuse of this exploit. According to Eurogamer sources, the way people have been getting around the ban is by using mule accounts to access the room, take its contents, and transfer them to main accounts before the ban hammer comes swinging down, as accounts are only flagged when the developer room is entered and not when the illicitly obtained items are received or traded. In other words, you can just have a fake account that collects the items from the developer room take the fall, while your main account that receives the items stays perfectly safe. Do keep in mind that Fallout 76 has already been fighting a plague of duplication glitches that saturated the game world with rare high-level items, so the ability to access the developer room is only bound to compound an already rampant issue exponentially. This whole developer room situation has been going on for quite some time too, with Eurogamer sources alleging that the room's existence has been known about for several weeks on various Discord servers. If this is indeed true, then I can only begin to imagine the surplus of illicitly acquired and valuable items that have managed to circulate into the game in all that time. It makes me wonder how badly this has affected the balance of an already broken game, or how many players were suckered in by shady real-life transactions of these items. What a painful display of Bethesda's overconfidence and negligence this is. They thought running an online game that's been built with a poorly optimized single-player engine whose foundation is decades old, that's been shoddily repurposed for multiplayer would be a home run. But here is more proof that Bethesda chewed on far more than they could swallow, and that they had no business creating a game like Fallout 76 with their lack of experience as far as online games are concerned, and their general lack of pride in the quality of their work. It's worth noting that things like duplication glitches and developer room access have been prevalent in Bethesda games since as far back as I can remember, and given Fallout 76's game engine was built using the same old, poorly aging Gamebryo exoskeleton, it's no wonder that Fallout 76 inherited so many undesirable elements from past games. This is yet another example of the unintended after effects that can result from building a modern engine using an antiquated foundation, and further proof that a complete makeover of Bethesda Game Studios' technology is long overdue. This is also what happens when you take a single-player template and just slap multiplayer on it without some fundamental changes and adjustments. Unexpected stuff like a room full of all in-game items that, while inconsequential in a single-player game, is fatal to a multiplayer game, may end up carrying over, and before you know it, players are gaining access to it and exploiting it for all kinds of shenanigans. This is all on you, Bethesda. It was your questionable decisions and your utter indifference that led you to this current predicament. So instead of relying on other players to right what's wrong with the game for you, how about you look introspectively and gauge for yourself why everything seems to be going tits up with Fallout 76? How about you overhaul your shit technology and take an oath to never launch a game in a state so compromised that it takes very little effort for players to tear it apart? I don't know, just a thought. So, there you have it, folks. Everything you need to know about the latest Fallout 76 missteps and my thoughts and opinions on the matter. I'd love to hear what your take is on this situation in the comments below. With that, I would like to end this news update and discussion video. Thank you for tuning in. To be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.